Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was the Son of Kageyama Sasuke. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. The world was holding its breath. The silence that engulfed the area was as loud the roar of the mightiest animal. Not that there were any animals in the area, however. The land was barren, desolate, bare. The rocky plain stretched as far as the eye could see whichever way it looked. There were no trees, there were no animals, and if it wasn't for the two figures standing on top of 10-meter-high outcropping rocks, there would be no life. Though there was no sun for them to see each other with, but that was okay. They didn't need to see each other, only what was to come. The first figure on one of the rocks was wearing a white full-length Haori with a black shirt, beneath which he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 megatama. He had short, spiky orange hair along with eyes that had a black dot as a pupil, a purple sclera and iris with 4 rings that spread out from the pupil and a trimmed goatee. He had horns on his head that were several centimeters above the skin, along with a light-colored circle on his right palm, and a dark crescent moon on his left. A sword, a katana to be precise, was in a black sheath at his waist, with an orange magatama as the guard and purple cloth wrapped around the hilt. A shakuja was in his right hand held in a firm grip, the gold rings on the staff were still. The man's eyes were set firmly in front of him, not wavering, barely blinking, unmoving. On the second rock was another man that was also following his companion's lead, and staring firmly ahead with his pure white eyes. The horns on his forehead were roughly the same size as the other man on the rock beside him. Wearing a white full-length Haori with a high collar, much like the other man beside him, along with dark pants and shirt. Just visible near the sleeves of his Haori, on his arms were 2 strange arm bracers, made with leather, yet there was also metal poking out beneath the sleeves. His long, waist-length, white hair that went down his back didn't hide the katana he also had sheathed at his waist, though he did nothing to hide it either. The staff was also unclasped in left hand, a strange gold M acted as the top, giving the weapon a strange look. The staff in the white-haired man's hand was held in a looser grip than the man beside him, though not by much. The object of their focus could only be described as some sort of demon, a creature whose appearance comes from one's nightmare. The creature was a dozen or so kilometers away, though the size of the creature meant that the two men didn't have long before it would be upon them. 4 thick legs that were thicker than most mountains held its titanic body off the ground. As each limb impacted the ground, it left a crater that could be 30 meters deep, a testament to its massive size. The 4 legs, however, looked more like hands than feet, while the hind legs were reminiscent of a dog's. 10 tails swung behind its body as it moved, each one having the ability to knock down mountains with ease. Both brothers had seen the beast do that on the way towards them. Spiky protrusions, much like the two companions' own on their foreheads, were spread out over the top of the being's oval head, along with the cone that adorns its back. Almost the entire thing was a murky brown color that covered its entire body. The only part of the creature that was a different color was the tips of the horns that sprouted around the top of its head like a crown. On the front of the head, looking at the two standing figures, was a single eye that rested above a mouth with teeth that could make a shark look like it had baby teeth in comparison. With the red sclera and iris along with 4 ripples that spread out from the dot-like pupil and the 12 tomo that were spread out along the ripples, it reminded both men of their mother's tomo eye and the Rinnegan combined. This worried both males. The most worrying thing about the entity before them was the pure overwhelming chakra that it seemed to exclude from its body. Both of the men could barely grasp the power that the thing before them wielded. If this was the power of a primordial entity, it certainly lived up to its name. They had felt its chakra exploded when it first awoke, and though they hadn't seen the full extent of its power, they had seen the smoke on the horizon signaling its approach. They'd even thought they had seen the flickers of fire. Living proof of the power that they would have to fight against, the power of a living force of raw power, the power of a god. "So, this is the Shinju," remarked the orange-haired man. He then placed his shakujo inside his Haori where it disappeared with a puff of smoke. "It appears so, brother," the white-haired man replied while repeating the same action as the other man, storing his staff in his Haori. "It appears we have awoken the Jubi," the man dubbed the beast. 10 tails. That's imaginative," the orange-haired brother said sarcastically in response to the naming of their foe. "I don't exactly have time to think up a smart one, Hagoromo," the Haori-wearing man said as he watched the beast lumber closer. The shockwaves it sent with each step was now buffering the brother's clothing. Hagoromo didn't respond straight away, leaving the two of them in silence for several seconds, only disturbed by the increasingly loud booms. As the legs of the primordial entity hit the ground, broke the silence. Hagoromo then turned his rippled eyes to his brother. "Naruto." Hagoromo was finding it hard to swallow as he talked. "Whatever happens in this battle, know that you will always be my brother, and that if I had any way to die besides the sands of time, it would be to fight by your side." As Hagoromo finished, his voice was thick with emotion as he looked towards his brother who had turned towards him, staring at him with his colorless eyes. Naruto then smiled. You will always be my brother as well, Hagoromo, said the younger sibling, his own voice thick. He managed to clear his voice before giving his brother a small smirk. Bet you I can do more damage than you can. Hagoromo gave a small smirk back to his brother. I don't think so, little brother, taunted Hagoromo, putting emphasis on little brother. Naruto said nothing back, choosing to jump down from his rock, rocketing high up into the sky and over the Shinju, its eye tracking him as he ascended. Hagoromo knew what his brother was going to do and acted accordingly. Gathering his chakra, Hagoromo thrust both of his hands diagonally upwards towards the Jupi, causing a pillar of earth to mirror his movements, shooting up like a spear towards its target. Or it would have, until a circle of his skin glowed a pale white, and quickly absorbed the chakra-enhanced earth into itself. Hagoromo frowned at this. They had prepared for the possibility that the Shinju could absorb chakra, but it didn't make him like it any more than he already did, which wasn't a lot. Even though they had prepared for this, the fact that it could absorb chakra severely reduced Hagoromo's options. As the Shinju's single eye turned its gaze to him, Hagoromo was happy that his attack did its job. Act as a distraction. Even though it was focused on the small figure standing on large rock, the Jubi was still well aware of the other source of his stolen chakra descending over his head, but paid it no mind. Why would it? It was a primordial entity, a force of nature. What could two pitiful creatures, that hadn't even lived a fraction of its lifetime, do to him? Its question was answered when the chakra that was descending over its head impacted with the force of a mountain. Naruto's chakra-infused fist struck the center of its head with enough force that it could rival an earthquake. Taken off guard by the power of the descending fist, the front limbs of the beast buckled, causing its head to hit the ground with boom. Hagoromo simply watched on as the beast's head hit the ground. It seemed that it could only absorb chakra it knew was coming, and unexpected chakra-based attacks could work. But now that they proved to the thing that they were an actual threat, he doubted that they'd get another shot at a surprise attack. As his brother landed next to him on his rock after flying back using his ability over wind, Hagoromo explained what he discovered. It seems that it can absorb chakra it knows it coming, much like I can. However, if caught off guard it can get his by a chakra attack. Hagoromo explained to his brother, who simply nodded. He had already come to his own conclusion about the beast's chakra-absorbing abilities. Both men's attention was drawn back to the Shinju when they felt a shudder run through the earth, and looked upon the 10 tails already on 3 legs, and just finishing to put its 4th back onto solid ground. Both noted there was barely a scratch on the crown of its head, despite the power in which it was hit. As it stood, the beast let off a terrifying roar, one that could shake the very heavens themselves. It was then that the Sasuke brothers realized that it wasn't just the roar of a mindless creature acting on a basic instinct, it was the battle cry of a very angry being that, contrary to the image its appearance gave off, did have intelligence. Something else the brothers soon found out was that it wasn't just a cry either. As soon as the beast finished they felt the wind pick up and start to roar, the ground shake and tremble like it was the act of Kami, and the clouds twist and swirl towards their direction. After several seconds of trying to maintain their balance on the rapidly crumbling rock, both Hagoromo and Naruto were forced to jump to either side, as one of 10 tails crashed onto their position, cracking the ground around it, and creating a shockwave that destroyed even more of the earth. Both males had to once again dodge as a tail came at both of them, once again destroying the ground around the side of impact. When the next tail comes swooping at them, both males were ready, now on either side of the Jupi. Both nimbly jumped out of the way while launching an attack, Hagoromo launching several small metal projectiles, while Naruto channeled pure lightning through his body and fired it straight into the base of the neck of the 10-tailed creature. The single-eyed beast let out a roar of annoyance more than pain, as if annoyed at the two brothers for hurting it, thankfully not causing any natural disasters, before turning to the one that caused it the most pain, Naruto. What happened next was too fast for Hagoromo to fully comprehend. The Jubi opened its mouth, close to unhinging its jaw, and formed a dark purple and black cone, of what could have only been chakra, and launched it at Naruto. The cone then shot out at Naruto like a beam that impacted the earth with force the likes Hagoromo had only ever seen, when Naruto broke out his high-level earth attacks. The beam dug through the earth, crashing into Naruto and taking him along with it. The explosion that then took place next could only be described as the power of a god. The dome was larger than the Shinju, and the heat that was given off was enough to crack the ground for several kilometers in any direction. It took several seconds before the dome of the blast finally subsided. What was then visible could only be described as the act of a vengeful god. The entire area that was caught in the blast was flattened. What was once a rocky plain was now just flat and barren land. There was nothing there, including his brother. At first Hagoromo felt nothing. That was for about a second before he was overcome by pure rage by the likes he had never felt before. This thing had killed his brother. It had killed his brother, and with Kami as his witness Hagoromo would make it by. Pushing his arm out so that his palm was facing towards the Shinju, Hagoromo decided to start right now. Shinra Tensei. He roared, forcing chakra down his arm. The repulsive force flew invisible through the air, only disturbing the ground slightly before crashing into the Jubi. The force struck with the rage of Hagoromo behind it, launching the hulking figure of the Shinju up into the air, and a dozen or so kilometers away. But even then Hagoromo gave it no time to rest. Still burning with righteous anger, he leapt after the 10-tailed beast, covering the distance in a few minutes. Landing just before the one-eyed god, Hagoromo whipped his hands forward like he was cracking a whip. The large purple chakra chains erupted from his wrists and hands that then charged the recovering Shinju, and started to wrap around the beast and its tails restraining it tightly, as per their user's will. Unfortunately for Hagoromo, he forgot about one of the 10 tails that were attached to the body. The only notice he had was the blurring of brown out of the corner of his left eye, before he closed his eyes and braced himself for impact. There was pain, but it wasn't from him, but instead from the Jubi still trapped in Hagoromo's chains. Taking a chance and opening his eyes, Hagoromo looked towards where he saw the tail coming from, and was shocked. Pieces of metal had shot up through the ground and pierced the tail that was coming to was about to turn him into a smear, stopping it from moving, though by the slight groaning of the metal it wouldn't be for long. "Hagoromo, you should really move your ass out of the way," said a strained voice, a voice that a few minutes ago he thought he would never hear again. Naruto. Several parts of his clothes were ripped along with several cuts and bruises, but other than that he looked fine, his cuts already healing thanks to his innate healing ability. His previously dead brother had his hands buried in the ground, his vambraces visible on his forearms, while his head was looking at Hagoromo, eyes glowing a gray. "Naruto?" Hagoromo breathed. "How?" he asked, confused. "The chakra shield." Naruto managed to get out, a bead of perspiration rolled down his face. "Now do me a favor and move your ass," Naruto yelled. Needless to say, Hagoromo got the message. Quickly releasing his chains, Hagoromo leapt back as the Shinju, now unrestrained, quickly started to stand, now determined to squash the bugs that were proving to be an annoyance. Naruto then stopped reinforcing the metal, which quickly snapped under the strength of the tail. Hagoromo and Naruto quickly regrouped, just as the Jubi was getting back onto its feet. "Hagoromo, we must set up the seal. It's obvious that we have no other option besides the seal," Naruto said quickly while eyeing the rising Shinju. "Yes, I agree," Hagoromo replied while also eyeing their foe. "I shall start to set up the seal now, while you keep it contained in this area. Remember, if even a single seal is sufficiently damaged, the seal will blow up with the combined power of everything I put into it, as well as the natural energy that is in the area," he said seriously. If they screwed up here, everything would be over. This was always going to be something the brothers would do with no other option. It would not only endanger the life of both of them, but potentially the lives of every person and animal in the elemental nations. It was also something that they couldn't set up on the spot, as the seals would have to be in perfect condition, and if it was preset, the Shinju could have damaged it. Luckily for them, the seal was set to circle around the target, and could be as big as the sealer, in this case Hagoromo, wanted. The downside was that the Shinju had to be kept occupied, so that the Hagoromo could focus on placing the seals. This meant that Naruto had to keep the Jubi focused on him, which would be incredibly tough considering the power it wielded. But even though it would be almost impossible, it was their best shot at defeating the beast. Naruto nodded at his brother's words before taking off towards the 10 tails, who had by now gotten back up onto his feet, and was tracking Naruto's approach with its single eye. It knew now that these two were a threat to it would have to deal with them to accomplish its self-appointed mission of retrieving what was originally its chakra. It had pondered about the other human that was running away from it, but quickly discarded the idea of pursuing it. The Shinju would eventually get its chakra back, that it knew for certain. Naruto stopped 100 meters or so away from the brown creature. If Hagoromo wanted a distraction, he'd get one. Placing his palms out, his eyes glowed a light green as the wind in front of him quickly started to rotate in a circular motion, forming a funnel for a rapidly growing tornado. It took mere seconds before the cylinder of the swirling winds was complete, picking up dust and rocks to be sucked inside its funnel. It was Naruto's own powers over wind that was stopping him from following those rocks. Naruto held the natural disaster in his grasp, with his ripped Hiyori blowing crazily behind him, before with a mighty push of chakra, he launched the tornado at his foe, who had watched been shaking itself to rid it of the many rocks and other debris that had hit it when they became caught in the winds of the tornado. Noticing the tornado, the Shinju intended to just weather the storm. After all, it usually created disasters like that when it roared, so it should be able to withstand the tornado. It was forced to rethink that when it sensed the human doing something else with its stolen chakra, focusing on it with its single eye. The Jubi noticed that the humans, normally white eyes, were now different colors. One was a fiery red, with the other being a pure black with a white pupil. The small figure took a deep breath before blowing out something that surprised the one-eyed god, even Hagoromo, who was several kilometers away from the battle. He blew out black flames. The flames of Amaterasu. The black flames of hell. The pure black flames rushed the tornado and worked their way up the pillar of wind before fully integrating itself wind, changing the attack into a now black tornado that was spinning with the fires of hell, licking at anything unlucky enough to get caught in its grasp. The 10-tailed creature didn't have enough time to escape the flames of Amaterasu that encased the tornado, and was caught in the spinning blaze. It roared in pain as it was constantly burned and healed at the same time. Naruto gave it no time to recover, however. Naruto flung his arms up into the air, his eyes turning dirt brown, and calling forth the earth to do his bidding. It rose in front of him like a tidal wave on a beach, soaring into the sky and surpassing the height of the Shinju, who was still being burned by the black tornado, but decided just to eject the burning pieces of its flesh, letting them drop to the ground before being consumed by the black flames. Naruto, however, paid that no mind and, like before, he flung his arms to the Jubi, causing his wave of earth to charge forward and crash into the behemoth, dispelling the black tornado that was already losing speed. The earth crashed into the beast, causing it to crumble under the weight and force of the rock. However, Naruto knew that his earth attack would not do anything to truly hurt the creature, it would simply heal after all. Acting with the opportunity, Naruto focused on the ground around the 10 tails, wanting to try and restrain the beast. He knew that restraining it for as long as possible would be the best option for both him and Hagoromo, as any small bit of flying debris could disrupt the ceiling or Hagoromo. Keeping it restrained for the longest possible time is the smartest thing to do in this situation. Focusing his will on his chosen element, Naruto's eyes turned a light pink, and the area around the Shinju erupted in pink crystals that trapped the Shinju in a pink pyramid of crystals. The 10-tailed creature struggled to move under the crystals, roaring its defiance, before suddenly it went slack. Naruto was immediately on guard. There was no way that it would give up, so that only meant that it was planning something or using an ability of some sort. Naruto inwardly prayed it wasn't the ability to fly, that would just make it harder to restrain. His prayers were answered when his trapped foe didn't take off from the ground, but instead started to spawn much smaller versions of itself that were able to slip through spaces in between the crystals. The clones varied in size and shape. Some had scythe-like arms, while others had large axes. Some were traveling on 2 legs, others on 4 legs. There were even some that toward over Naruto, equaling the size of houses, and all of them were rapidly charging his position. He inwardly cursed. Of all the things the damn beast he had to have, it had to be minions. Thankfully though, Hagoromo took care of that problem. Hagoromo! Naruto shouted behind him, using chakra to enhance his voice to shout the distance between them. Minions. Several kilometers away, riding seals into the rocky earth, Hagoromo heard his brother's voice, and turned to look in his direction, and instantly noticed what the problem was. Hundreds and hundreds of what could only be described as miniature 10 tails without the 10 tails that came out of its hide. Hagoromo inwardly cursed. This would make his job that much harder, but at least they could bring in some help. Standing up and quickly dusting of some dirt from his Haori, Hagoromo quickly focused his chakra into his hand, before slamming it into the ground. Summoning! He yelled. A massive amount of smoke was then brought up, obscuring Hagoromo and most of the area around him. When the smoke finally cleared, there was a massive amount of different animals, all of them larger than normal. Some were mythical, while the majority were simply animals that could be found anywhere. There were dragons, phoenixes, tigers, turtles, frogs, snakes, eagles, wolves, lions, bears and ravens. Even some that were aquatic in nature were there, such as krakens, octopuses and sharks, and those were only the ones as the forefront of the animal army. The ones that were standing on 2 legs were holding weapons, from massive katana to scythes and swords, while the ones on 4 legs or flying were wearing a maur of different sorts. Most of them were different colors as well. There were creatures that were green when they were originally brown, and ones that were blue when they were green. Hagoromo and Naruto had nicknamed the various creatures summons, as they could be summoned from anywhere, or at least as far as they knew. The summons were originally created when Hagoromo had channeled much of his chakra into different animals. This caused the animals to grow larger and smarter. It also changed them physically in some ways. It also gave them the ability to use some of the elements, though on a smaller scale, the ability to talk and, in some cases, walk on 2 legs. They were essentially given chakra. Though with the mythical animals, they didn't know if the Rinnegan created them, or if they were summoned from somewhere, as they were mindless beasts when Shikishin, Animal Path, summoned them. The mythical animals said that they didn't remember anything before they were summoned, and it is unknown to Hagoromo and Naruto if this is a side effect of the Rinnegan summoning a mythical creature, or if they were created by the Sakurai. All of the newly called summons had agreed to aid the brothers in battle, should the need arise. However, after that event, Naruto had noticed that Hagoromo had been oddly pensive about the event. It had cleared up several days later, but for some reason the mere thought of it brought a shiver down Naruto's spine. Hagoromo had thought of something that Naruto knew would come to bite him in the arse later, he was sure of it. As the smoke fully cleared one of the summons, a large light brown toad spoke to Hagoromo. He wields a large staff with multiple spikes on either end. Hagoromo-sama, the toad said respectively. All of the summons referred to Hagoromo, and a few of them to Naruto as well, with respect akin to someone of high status that saved their life multiple times. What do you wish of us? Amamaru, I need all of you to defend my brother from the Jubi spawn, he ordered. Now was not a time to be polite. Quickly, my brother must be able to focus on keeping the Jubi restrained while I continue the sealing. Once that is done, dispel yourselves. And watch the seals on the ground. If even one is disturbed, we will all fail. With that, Hagoromo got back to carving the seals into the ground, while the summons raced off to battle against the Jubi's horde, taking care to avoid the seals on the ground. As Naruto was about to let go of the Shinju so he could focus on his spawn that were rapidly rushing his position, he heard more footsteps coming from behind him. Looking over his shoulder, he breathed a sigh of relief. His brother had summoned their army to keep the horde occupied, while he could focus on the 10-tailed beast currently trapped in a crystal prison. Speaking of which, that same beast, as if sensing its jailer's lack of focus, reared up and rammed itself against its pink prison, with earth-shattering strength that cracked the bars of crystal that held it down. Naruto inwardly cursed his wandering mind and returned his attention to his prisoner. The Jubi, however, seemed to be taking advantage of that one moment of weakness to start slamming its multiple tails against the weakened bars, draining their strength further. Naruto, seeing this, decided to cut his losses and release his hold on the crystal prison, and try again with another element. The Jubi flexed its legs and the crystal bars shattered like glass, and the one-eyed god roared in satisfaction that it was finally free of that infernal pink cage. That satisfaction was short-lived, however, when it felt another build-up of chakra. Quickly turning its single eye to look at the source, it was greeted a bright flash of light struck it straight in the eye with enough power to take down a mountain. The beast released an animalistic yell that shook the earth and the sky like. It was time to take this human seriously. It would destroy him now, regardless if it got back its chakra in the end. This human needed to die. Its eye was quickly healed, and the 10 tails wasted no time in reminding the two mortals why it was a god. Its tails arched over its head before crashing into the area the human was in, not caring if it hit the summons or its own spawn in the process. The earthquake that resulted from the slamming of the tails could be heard around the world, however the Shinju failed in its goal. Naruto had managed to avoid the tails by utilizing a sub-element that made him exceptionally fast. He had no idea what to call it, but right then, he was just glad to have to avoid those damn tails. Stopping directly behind the Jubi, around a kilometer away, he tried to gather himself so he could think of a plan. The beast had taken him off guard with how quick it had recovered as well, and unfortunately for him, he wasn't about to get any more time to plan. The Jubi turned around with speed that a being of its size shouldn't have, and faced the youngest Sasuke, and did something that surprised Naruto. Its mouth unhinged and extended its jaw to unfurl what Naruto recognized a kind of plant mouth. Naruto had seen plants that looked like it, but he had never seen a mouth that looked like that. He stood dumbstruck for a second at the sheer ridiculousness of mouth before he remembered something. The Shinju's original form was a tree. It only fit that its mouth would be that of a plant. He was shaken out of his thoughts when the one-eyed god started to collect chakra at the end of its mouth, much like it did before, only this time it was much bigger than the last one, almost as big as its own body. Naruto had a feeling that his chakra shield wouldn't block this one. It was obviously forming into a ball, judging by the shape it was taking, but what really made Naruto worry was that the chakra that was being used to form the ball was quite literally ripping up the ground in the process. Quickly deciding what he had to do, Naruto used an element that was easily one of the more complicated ones. Placing his hands out in front of him, slightly cupped, Naruto focused on gathering chakra quickly, as he knew he needed to fire before the Shinju did. As the 10-tailed beast finished with its attack and was about to launch it, a large surge of chakra from beyond its vision made it hesitate for 1 second, and it was 1 second that it would remember for the rest of its existence. Eat this! Naruto screamed and released the technique he had created, a large cylinder structure that guided a beam of what one could assume at first glance to be light, straight towards ball the Shinju was creating. The result of the two attacks colliding would stay in the mind of Naruto, Hagoromo, the summons, the Shinju and the rest of the world, not that they would know what it was. The attacks collided, creating an explosion that would not be seen until millennia later. The Jubi, caught in the ground zero of the explosion, would take the worst of the damage. It would be quickly consumed by the blast, hidden from view. Though his primal roars of pain would give those around the world an idea to what it was feeling. Naruto would only have a second to create a spherical shield made of chakra, reinforcing it with everything he had before the shockwave of the blast would knock him flying. The summons that were fighting the Jubi spawn while this was happening would quickly dispel themselves to escape death, while the Jubi spawn would get destroyed from the power of the blast. Hagoromo got knocked back a few feet from the force of the explosion, his distance from the explosion reducing the force of the shockwave, before he got back up again, and quickly went back to finishing the sealing circle. It would do no good to be distracted now, especially when he was so close to finishing the sealing circle. He was sure his brother survived. His primary concern was if any of the previous seals were damaged by the explosion, but there was no time to go back and check. He could only hope for the best. When Naruto first opened his eyes, all he saw was a bright light, quickly blinking. He was relieved that the brightness started to recede before completely disappearing, and he was greeted by the clouded sky. He slowly sat up just in case anything was broken, though unlikely considering he unconsciously healed. Though it was better to be safe than sorry, he idly noted that he was at the end of a trench he must have made with his own body. Quickly hopping out and looking around, he tried to find out where he was and how long he was out. He quickly realized that he hadn't gone far, and could easily make out the bulky body of the Jupi that was lumbering away from him, most likely thinking he was dead. There were signs of injury on the titanic beast. The front of its body was severely burned, though healing, and the slight limp on one of its front legs were indications of the damage it had received. Checking his chakra reserves, he idly noted that they were still 3/4 full, and he inwardly thanked his mother's harsh training, otherwise he might be drained. Naruto's eyes glowed green as he threw his Hiyori off, as it was basically rags now, and leapt up into the air and flew towards the beast, and prayed that Hagoromo was still okay, or that he could last until he arrived. His brother was meant to set up sealing circles while he farted. Meanwhile, Hagoromo was inwardly cursing his brother if he was still alive. The Jubi was coming his way, and there wasn't enough time to finish the last dozen or so seals to complete the sealing circle, and all it would take was one swipe of its tail to ruin everything. Even if he could finish the circle, he still had to then carve the second circle that would seal whatever was in the first circle inside the second. The second circle needed to be joined to the first one at a specific symbol. He could feel the booms as the Shinju's 4 feet struck the earth with each step, each one closer than the last. The Jubi wasn't even slowed down by the explosion of the 2 powerful attacks. At best someone could say that there was a slight limp in his step. Hagoromo was about to sigh in defeat before he sensed a chakra source that he knew quite well, Naruto. He did sigh this time, in relief. Maybe it wasn't over, they still had a chance. Focusing back on his ceiling, he noticed out of the corner of his eye, the 10-tailed beast turned around to face the direction his brother was coming from. Just a little more time, Naruto, he murmured, still focused on his seals. A little more time. As Naruto approached the one-eyed god, whose single eye was narrowed in anger at the sight of him, Naruto noted that it was only a few more steps away from Hagoromo, who was doing the last few seals on the first circle of seals. He needed to move the primordial god away from his brother and fast. Touching down several kilometers away from his foe and in the center of the sealing circle, he thrust his hand forward with his palms down, in the direction of the Shinju, before clenching his hands into fists, before he then slowly moved his hands back towards him with a yell. He pulled them back towards him in a single tug. The effect was immediate. The ground beneath the Jubi was pulled towards the white-eyed Sasuke, with the Jubi still on top, effectively dragging the beast towards the center of the sealing circle. The beast wobbled on the moving platform of earth, but managed to retain its balance, causing it to take its eyes of Naruto, something that Naruto exploited. He quickly stopped the platform moving, causing the Jubi to be propelled off the slate of rock and land on the ground with a boom. Moving quickly, knowing that he only needed to stall his foe for a few more minutes at the most, until Hagoromo was finished with the sealing array, Naruto took a deep breath before blowing out a pressurized stream of lava out of his mouth and into the Shinju. The beast roared in pain as Naruto started to aim the stream at the uncovered parts of the Jubi, and the lava quickly started to harden, being exposed to the cool air. Naruto stopped the stream of lava, choosing to try to stall it for as long as possible, and quickly, with his eyes turning blue, summoned a large lake worth of water, before relinquishing his hold over the element, landing on the lava, causing it to cool rapidly and harden into rock. The Jubi roared, shaking the ground and causing the sky to darken, but thankfully not causing a massive disaster. Naruto could only pray the seals held intact until they could seal the beast. Another plan forming in his mind, Naruto ran straight towards the still-downed Shinju, that was only now bringing itself to his feet. Apparently it was hurt from where their attacks collided. Leaping high into the air, over the still-rising body of the 10 tails. Starting to descend it, Naruto was going to utilize his chakra construct's ability, and to harden lava that covered a majority of his foe's skin. Forming a large semi-transparent mallet in his right hand, Naruto manipulated the wind to help him speed up his descent, and as he neared the Shinju's shell, he raised his arm behind him, and roared out a battle cry. Kami's hammer. He cried as he brought the hammer down, subconsciously reinforcing it, while channeling chakra to his legs to help them survive the fall. The chakra hammer impacted against the hardened lava, just like Naruto planned, crushing the rock to dust, while transferring the force onto the Jubi, which was enough to force it back to the ground with a tremor, leaving the beast momentarily stunned. Naruto landed around 100 meters away from the beast, the shockwave from the hammer hitting the hardened lava forcing him back. Deciding to take advantage of the situation, Naruto decided to do something that was still in its experimental stages, and would most likely get him yelled at later. He still couldn't believe that Hagoromo thought he gave up on the idea he could use explosives like an element. While he may be more mature, he did like explosions. So of course he would continue on his work in secret. The Shinju was about to feel the fruits of his labor. Stamping his foot on the ground, Naruto caused the earth beneath the Shinju to shift, revealing raw clay to be beneath it, circling the beast, as well as a small thin trail of clay that ran towards him. It was quite strange that of all the substances that his explosion chakra could be channeled into, the best was clay. Forcing those thoughts out of his head, Naruto charged his chakra through the thin strip of clay towards the large circle of it that the Jubi was laying on. He continued to do that until he felt he had charged it enough before stopping and smirking, idly making the small trail of clay disappear, sending it to bunch of next the larger circle of clay. Naruto's explosive chakra was not the same as other elemental chakra. While it could be used with just his hands, it worked best when it had a medium, in this case, clay. In order for the medium to explode, it required to be charged with explosive chakra. He then keeps charging the medium until he feels that it's full of explosive chakra. Once that happened, Naruto lets loose a flare of chakra that travels towards the charged piece, that then makes the medium go from full to overflowing, which then causes it to explode. The explosion that follows depends on the size of the medium, as well as type of medium, the type being what he channels the explosive chakra into, clay being the best he knew of so far, and brick or rock being the worst so far. Naruto smirked as he saw the 10 tails about to finally regain its footing. Not for long, he thought viciously. He really liked blowing stuff up. He leapt back, choosing to put some distance between himself and the imminent explosion, before he sent out a pulse of chakra. At first there was nothing, and Naruto thought that he might have done something wrong. That thought was quickly cut off by the explosion that engulfed the Jubi and the area around it, though thankfully not endangering the ceiling circle. Ordinarily something like that would have blown a hole almost 30 kilometers wide. However, thanks to the fact that it was partially underground, hindering how far wide it could go, and the Shinju on top of it also limited the blast radius. Deciding that he should now see how his brother was doing, he decided to move over to where he saw Hagoromo. With chakra-enhanced legs, he leapt over to the edge of the ceiling circle where Hagoromo was halfway through with the second circle. The second one didn't need to be as big as the first one, it only needed to fit the subject that the object in the first circle would be sealed into. Naruto quickly moved next to Hagoromo, who was carving seals into the ground at a rate that his hands were blurring. Naruto was about to comment before a roar from the Shinju caused him to turn around. He then pulled. The 10-tailed beast was running towards them, not incredible fast because of its bulk hindering its ability to sprint, but fast enough to cover kilometers in seconds. Its feet hit the ground, caused tremors in the earth, but not enough for an earthquake. There were obvious signs of damage to its body from the explosion, burned pieces of skin and such, but it was still moving fast for something that was meant to be injured. The look of anger it was giving Naruto was visible, even from that distance. It was obvious that the Shinju was pissed, wasn't going to play around anymore, it was out for blood, and it wanted to do it personally. Hurry up, Hagoromo, Naruto warned his brother. Why couldn't his brother write faster? It's charging us and I doubt that I have anything that could stop this at its current speed. 1 minute, his brother replied. The orange-haired man wasn't going to waste time with a long response. We don't have a minute, Naruto yelled. Make one, Hagoromo yelled back, not turning to face his brother. Naruto turned back to the charging beast that would soon trample them. Gathering his chakra, Naruto used the only element that came to mind. It trembled slightly as Naruto expended a massive amount of chakra before he thrusted his arms forward with a primal yell. Tentacles of wood shoot up from underground, each one of them as thick as one of the legs of the Jubi, and wrapped around the legs, tails and body of the one-eyed god, causing the beast to tumble to the ground, as more and more of the wooden tentacles wrapped around the beast, squeezing the grounded beast as more piled on. As the beast hit the ground, the tentacles seemed like they were trying to draw the Shinju into the ground, not really surprising, considering it was once a tree. Naruto started to sweat as he tried the beast down as tight as possible, tails included. He idly noted that he felt the beast's power be not decreased but suppressed. Right now Naruto couldn't really care what it was doing to the Jubi's power, only that it was restraining its body. Still, even now that it was practically kissing the ground, it still was struggling like a wild animal caught in a net. Hagoromo, Naruto yelled. What was taking him so long? Naruto knew that Hagoromo needed time to seal the Jubi into himself, but could it really take so long? Originally Naruto had wanted to seal it into himself or at least have both of them share the burden, but Hagoromo had told him that trying to seal a being, especially something that was part god, into two different things simultaneously was too dangerous. Hagoromo said that there was a chance that the seals might attack each other, instead of sealing the Shinju, that something might go wrong with the seals, and it was better to happen to one of them than both of them. There was also the fact that it would take too long to set up another sealing circle, and they needed to seal the Jubi as quickly as possible. Hagoromo also said that there was no point in sealing the beast in Naruto if Hagoromo was the one doing the sealing, as he would be able to monitor the seal best, as he was the better seal master of the two. Done, Hagoromo exclaimed, breaking Naruto out of his thoughts. Naruto, step out of the circle. Now. Naruto sidestepped out of the circle, still struggling to hold the Jubi in place, while it roared its displeasure at being held down. Okay, just as it's about to get sealed, you need to release it, otherwise it will interfere with the sealing, got it? Naruto got no time to respond as Hagoromo slammed his hand down on the symbol that joined the two circles, causing the symbols of both circles to light up in a light blue color. Phew, and Hagoromo shouted. He then quickly stood up and ripped open his Hyorin shirt, revealing his bare chest, before chains shot out of an intricate seal that was on his stomach aiming at the Jubi. Naruto, let go now. The eldest male Sasuke yelled. Naruto listened to his brother, releasing the Jubi and making the wooden tentacles retreat back into the ground, just in time as the purple chains shot forward, impaling themselves into the Jubi at multiple points, including the head, body, legs and tails. All of them were stuck by the chakra manifested chains. As soon as it was released from the wooden tentacles, the Jubi tried to destroy the humans before it, but was attacked by the chains that not only started to stab at its body, but were starting to drain it of its chakra. The one-eyed god struggled against the chains, trying to release itself, but it was no use. Its chakra was being removed too quickly, and the chains were too numerous. It could feel its chakra reserves depleting, but that didn't stop it from still struggling. It was starting to revert to its weaker forms, a testament to how great the chakra drain was. It was then that the part god made a vow, when it promised to fulfill when it returned, and it knew it would one day. It promised that it would make sure both of these humans paid. Whether it was them or their descendants, it didn't matter, just as long as they regretted their actions against a god. Neither Hagoromo nor Naruto knew what was going on. The Shinju appeared to be changing forms as Hagoromo sucked the chakra out of it. It changed twice until it was some kind of creature with 10 tails, a pointy bulb on its back with no back legs, razor-sharp teeth and a single eye, the exact same as the creature that used to be in its place. This creature was still struggling against the chains. It struggled for a bit more before it stopped and looked directly at Hagoromo and Naruto, its single eye glaring at them with so much hate, so much rage that it would last beyond the Shinigami itself. It let loose one last earth-shattering roar that literally made the area tremble, before that last of its chakra was drained into Hagoromo, who with a yell of pain, collapsed into unconscious. If Hagoromo had stayed awake a little bit longer, he would have seen his brother stumble a bit from the trembling of the earth, and place a foot into the circle he was already occupying, just as the last of the beast chakra was being removed from the 10 tails. It was unfortunate that Hagoromo wasn't conscious because he would have seen a large chunk of the Jubi's chakra break off from the rest of it, and get absorbed into Naruto as Hitfoot placed itself in the circle. Naruto, however, did see that happen, and his face palled when it sunk in just what just happened. He suddenly felt a shooting pain that came from the leg in the circle, that soon traveled up his leg and around his body. The pain was so intense that he soon started to see black spots flicker across his vision, and he quickly felt himself losing consciousness. As the black edges slowly crept into vision, Naruto had one final thought. Oh shit. When Hagoromo regained consciousness, he instantly let out a low groan of pain. It felt like his whole body was expanding and contracting at the same time, like he was being pulled inside out. He tried to sit up, but a firm hand on his chest gently pressed him back down. He opened his eyes slightly, but his vision was so blurred that it didn't help at all. He felt a cool sensation spread from the hand on his chest to the rest of his body, and start circulating. As it did, the pain slowly started to fade. "Relax, Hagoromo," a familiar voice said. "The pain will eventually go away, but any movement will make it persist. What you're currently feeling is the rapid expansion of your chakra system. Any exertion could damage it. I'm trying to fix what I can." Hagoromo did so, closing his eyes and relaxing his entire body. "Naruto." Hagoromo weakly groaned. "Is it you?" "No," the same voice replied sarcastically. "It's me, the mighty Shinju. Go before me, puny mortal." Hagoromo gave a weak chuckle in reply. That was his brother. Only he could joke about being a primordial deity that they had just fought in a battle to the death. Hagoromo's mind stopped as he remembered. The Shinju. The ceiling. His eyes snapped open completely as he sat up, turning to his brother, who had to lean out of the way to avoid clashing heads. Hagoromo felt his Hiyori beside him. His brother must have taken it off to heal him. "Naruto." "The Shinju, what happened?" Hagoromo exclaimed. He would have asked more questions, but Naruto already had his hands on Hagoromo's shoulders, and intervened before his brother could fire off more questions. "Don't worry, Hagoromo." Naruto had to almost shout at his brother to get him to stop babbling out questions. The ceiling worked, the Shinju is sealed. Here Naruto paused. However, there were side effects from the sealing. "Tell me," was the immediate response from Hagoromo. He needed to know what was wrong and if it was serious. Hagoromo took a moment to take his brother in, his Hiyori missing, Dambraces visible, multiple cut marks and tears in his shirt, though there were no cuts or bruises on his skin, thanks to his healing. Hagoromo put his Hiyori back on, feeling a bit of a chill without it. Seeing Hagoromo's face, Naruto was quick to allay his fears. "Nothing serious, Hagoromo, don't worry. It's just small physical changes as far as I can tell," he said sheepishly. "Naruto, what are the side effects?" Hagoromo grounded out. He didn't like that his brother tried to skirt around telling him the changes. Naruto, seeing that he was going to have to tell Hagoromo about the changes, sighed. "Your skin has turned gray, permanently as far as I know," he said honestly. You also have a marking on your forehead, also permanent as far as I can tell. It's in the shape of a red Rinnegan. Naruto saw no reason to beat around the bush if his brother wanted to know what the changes were. Naruto felt that it would do more harm than good to not tell him. Hagoromo didn't say anything for a while, choosing to think over the information. Naruto chose this time to look around their makeshift home. There wasn't anything besides a box of earth that Naruto hastily constructed when he came to after passing out. With a mere thought, Naruto made it retreat back into the ground. It was only meant to last the two of them till Hagoromo woke up, then they would travel back to their mother, who Naruto was sure was already on her way here, as soon as she felt the Ten Tails chakra disappear. From there, they would discuss what to do, whether it was training, moving or simply going their separate ways. Both Hagoromo and himself were now roughly 25. Their mother didn't know the day they were exactly born. To the rest of the world, both Hagoromo and himself should have moved away from their mother and made something of themselves by now. But because of the Shinju as well as the fact that his family wasn't normal, they had all stayed together, and Naruto didn't know if that was a good thing or bad thing. What about my chakra? Hagoromo's question knocked Naruto out of his thoughts. Turning to look at his brother, Naruto replied with the only answer he had. As far as I know it's fine, but because I can't see your chakra system, I can be sure though from what I was able to detect, you're fine. Naruto replied. Maybe his mother could take a look at it later. Her white eye should be able to detect any anomalies. Naruto then continued, knowing the real reason he asked about his chakra. As for the Jubi's chakra, it's there but it seems like it's just sitting there, not doing anything. Naruto paused to think for a second. If I had to guess, I'd say that its conscious is still in the statue, therefore you should have full control of its chakra. Statue? Hagoromo questioned. What statue? Naruto didn't answer, instead pointing behind him. Hagoromo turned around, his eyes widening as he saw what his brother was pointing at. Without the wall from the makeshift hut to block his view, Hagoromo could now see outside and observe the results from the battle that had taken place. Two massive craters were the immediate eye-catcher, the result of Naruto using explosive chakra, and a massive ball attack from the Jubi, and Naruto's beam attack colliding. There were several smaller craters and scorch marks from the various attacks. However, Hagoromo's attention wasn't on these things, it was on the wooden statue in the position the Jubi last was. It appeared that the Jubi had turned wooden and changed its form one last time. It had lost all of its tails and its bulb, instead gaining wooden spines, which were cut off near the top, all over its back. It gained a neck and a head back after it lost it in its last form. There was a kind of bind around its eye where there was another eye on top of binding, exactly where its original eye would have been. Along with all that, the body looked mostly human with its two arms and legs. Its arms pointed upwards cupping something while its legs were crossed. Both of them simply stared at the statue for several minutes, both choosing to gaze at what was once their enemy that was now nothing but a large statue. So Naruto was startled when his brother asked him the question. Naruto, his brother asked suddenly. If I knew there was a way to make this world better than it was now, and I decided to pursue that decision, would you support my decision? Naruto looked curious, but on the inside he was narrowing his eyes at his brother. What was he getting at? That depends, Hagoromo. Naruto said slowly. Would I like the way you found? He was getting slightly nervous. What was his brother getting at? Naruto had a bad feeling settling in his gut. Hagoromo sighed. You gave your answer, Naruto. What happened next was a blur to Naruto. 1 minute Hagoromo was by his side, the next he was behind him, and using 4 strong arms of the Asura Path to pin his arms to his sides. Hagoromo. Naruto yelled, surprised at his brother's actions. What are you doing? Helping the world, was the reply. Naruto now started to struggle against the 4 arms holding him down, though not hard enough to harm his brother. Naruto stiffened when he felt his brother draining his chakra through the skin contact. Hagoromo, what in Kami's name are you doing? Naruto was now practically screaming at his brother. His struggling was now becoming more and more frantic. Hagoromo realized that he needed to do it now, otherwise his brother would break free. The only reason he hadn't yet was because he didn't know what he was doing. If he did, he would have broken free immediately. Using chakra to create peace, he said calmly. With that, Hagoromo raised 2 arms that weren't holding on to Naruto, his original arms, so that they were on either side of Naruto, extending forward. Arms that were light with red and blue fire. The sinking feeling in Naruto's gut intensified. Creation of all things, Hagoromo cried. The colored flames leapt at each other, turning into a purple flame. The flame then started to spin around, condensing itself into a ball. Naruto felt the chakra in the air rising. Hagoromo was doing something that was affecting the world on a massive scale. The level of chakra kept rising, so much so that Naruto was surprised he couldn't see it. The chakra kept rising and rising and rising and it was gone. Just like that, all the chakra in the air was gone, vanished. Naruto felt Hagoromo's extra arms around him disappear. Almost immediately Naruto spun around and gripped his brother by the collar of his Hiyori, staring his brother in the eye. What did you do? Naruto grounded out through his teeth. Naruto wasn't just mad at his brother, he was pissed. His brother had just involved him in something potentially dangerous, and something that he knew he wouldn't have agreed to if his actions were to be judged. Hagoromo was sweating slightly. Whatever he had done had taken a lot out of him, but right now, Naruto wasn't in the mood to show his elder sibling any concern. What his brother had done was completely out of line. Using his chakra for something was bad enough, but to then use it for something he knew he would voluntarily do is worse, and that would increase or decrease how badly Naruto would beat the shit out of him afterwards. Hagoromo looked like he was about to answer, before another voice cut him off. Yes, Hagoromo. A familiar voice said with a neutral tone, but both men could detect the anger in the voice. What did you do? Kaguya Sasuke hadn't looked like she had aged a day, looking almost exactly like she had several years ago. She was standing in a kimono a few meters from both of her children. And pray to Kami that it's good enough for you to escape my wrath. Both males could detect that it was a promise, not a threat. Kaguya valued one's chakra akin to a woman's virginity. To steal it is one of the greatest crimes one can perform in her eyes. This was the reason she was pissed. She had sensed Naruto's chakra in that technique that Hagoromo had performed, and could tell that Hagoromo had pissed Naruto off within the last minute. That only left one conclusion. Naruto let go of his brother's Hiyori and took several steps back to let him explain. Hagoromo breathed for several seconds, regaining his breath from being held up by his brother, before he looked up at both of them with a neutral face. I took a step towards peace, he said. There was neither joy nor no happiness in his voice. What was this step, Hagoromo? It wasn't a request or plea, it was a demand from his mother. It had better explain why I can feel multiple chakra signatures on the mainland. This got Naruto's attention. Multiple chakra signatures. The only other beings that had chakra besides the three of them were the Shinju, which was currently sealed inside Hagoromo, and the summons. The Shinju was sealed inside Hagoromo, so it couldn't be that, and Hagoromo wouldn't take his chakra to summon any of the summons. He didn't even use the right technique. Then suddenly it hit him like a chakra-infused punch. You gave regular people the ability to use chakra. It wasn't said loudly, but his mother and brother heard it, especially his mother. What? She growled. Hagoromo, you had better tell me that he's lying. Hagoromo didn't answer. There was silence for several seconds before it was broken by the growing rage of the Omegle Sasuke female. That rage came to a violent eruption in seconds. You did what? You gave those people, she grounded out the word people with venom, the privilege to use chakra. The same people who have the ability to turn almost anything into a weapon. Kaguya didn't give Hagoromo any chance to respond. Are you an idiot? I did it to promote peace. Hagoromo injected, though there was a bit of anger in his voice. If you let me explain, you'd realize that I have created a way for people to connect using chakra. If I can teach people this. Then what, Hagoromo? Surprisingly, it was Naruto who spoke up. The white-haired man showed anger in his eyes that surprised Hagoromo and Kaguya for a second. You gave everybody the ability to use chakra, not just the men, women and children, but also the bandits and lowlifes that inhabit the shadows. What do you think they will do with chakra? They will use it for their own gain. Naruto took a deep breath to calm down before continuing. You say that you will teach people to connect using chakra, but what about those people that you can't teach or those that experiment with chakra? You gave them chakra with the same potential as mine and yours. What if someone gains the Rinnegan? What if everyone else gains the same power as us? Naruto said with anger still lacing his tone. No one will ever gain as much chakra as us, that I know for sure. Hagoromo said confidently. As for someone gaining the same abilities as us, if I can teach them how to use Ninshu, my way to connect people, then they will under. No? Kaguya yelled, interrupting Hagoromo. You don't get it. With enough time people will turn chakra into a weapon. Your Ninshu will be perverted into something that will bring forth a long line of violence. It will all be because of your belief that peace can be obtained if you gave people the ability to use chakra. One day, they will turn chakra into a weapon for violence. For war. This is why peace will never be achievable without force. With this, Kaguya turned around, but not before parting some final words. From this moment on, you are not my son, Hagoromo. Kaguya hissed before turning around, not looking at Hagoromo's blank face or Naruto's look of surprise at his mother's words, before his face slackened. Let's go, Naruto. She continued walking for several moments before she stopped, hearing no footsteps behind her. Naruto. She called, not looking over her shoulder. No, Ka-chan. The voice was soft, but Kaguya still caught it, as did Hagoromo. Kaguya turned around while Hagoromo focused on his brother, inwardly hoping that Naruto might agree with his words. When both of them looked at their youngest family member, they saw him with his head down, not focusing on either of them. For so long, he whispered. I have tried to keep our family together. Yet I have watched as both of your own beliefs on peace tear this family apart. Both of you have put your own beliefs, your own goals ahead of your own family. As he said this, he raised his head, looking at both of his family members with tears running down his cheeks. Both inwardly flinched at Naruto's words. Hagoromo, you put your own views on what was right before your own brother. You stole my chakra, and then you didn't even apologize for it. He knew why Hagoromo used his chakra, since he didn't have enough to jumpstart the rest of the world's chakra. Hagoromo had used his chakra, since he didn't know what the Jubi's chakra would do. But that didn't change anything. He still stole his chakra. At least now I know how the Jubi feels. He thought. Ka-san, you were willing to exile Hagoromo from our family simply because he did something that opposed your views, and then walked away like you hadn't done anything wrong. With this, Naruto turned around so that his back was facing both Hagoromo and Kaguya. If both of you can put yourselves before family, then so can I. Both Kaguya and Hagoromo saw him take a deep breath. I can't take the constant war that the two of you have. I tried to overlook the flaws of my family, but both of you have brought them into the light in a way I can't ignore anymore. Naruto paused for a moment to get himself under control before continuing to speak. I hope both of you have a good life because I won't be in it. Naruto bent at the knees before taking off, using his wind manipulation to fly away. Away from the wreck that was once his family. He didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. When he landed he would, for the first time since he was a child, cry himself to sleep. Both Hagoromo and Kaguya stood there for several minutes after Naruto disappeared over the horizon. Both of them stayed in the same place for almost an hour before Kaguya left. She didn't go in any real direction, she just started walking, not looking back either. Hagoromo stayed there for almost another hour, simply standing, looking over at the horizon. He then looked at the statue of the Jubi. I'm sorry Naruto. He whispered to the air. No one heard his apology. With that Hagoromo set off, unsealing his staff from his Haori and walking off, leaving the wooden statue in the middle of the battlefield. He had to teach the world how to use chakra, he wouldn't let all that he sacrificed be in vain. None of the family members would meet for years to come. And even then, it wouldn't be under the best circumstances. Somewhere in Fire Country, history had just been made. Underneath the surface of the earth, there was a cave that was occupied by 10 beings of great power. 9 of the powerful beings were animals, or at least they looked like animals. All of them were larger than they were meant to be, and some of them looked like a cross between multiple animals. A sand raccoon with 1 tail, a blue fire cat with 2 tails, a turtle crab with 3 tails, a red and green gorilla with 4 tails, a horse dolphin with 5 tails, a white bipedal slug with 6 tails, a green caterpillar-like beetle with 7 tails, a ox octopus with 8 tails and a kitsune with 9 tails. Surprisingly, none of these 9 creatures were the most powerful in the room. That honor belonged to the man in the circle of the strange creatures, standing in the middle of strange symbols. The man in the center of the circle had pale red hair that went down to his shoulders, spiky with chin-length braid down the front of his left ear, along with a long goatee that went down to his waist. Horns protruded from his head above his purple rippled eyes and a red ripple marking on his forehead. The man was gray-skinned, wearing a white full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar, beneath which he wore a necklace which was also made up of 6 magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger ripple-like marking with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows of 3 beneath it. The man was old, judging by the wrinkles on his skin. He was in his late 60s, early 70s, yet he still looked healthy for someone his age. The shakujo in his hand made it obvious he was some sort of traveler. The man was speaking with the several-tailed beasts. Speaking to them with no amount of fear in his voice that any lesser man would have had, but what did he have to fear? He created them. I don't have long anymore. Shukaku, Matatabi, Isobu, Son Goku, Kakuro, Seiken, Chimei, Jayuki, Kurama. Even though you have been separated, you shall always be together. Until eventually that time shall come when you will become one. You each carry a name, and with a different shape than you had up to now, you will be shown a righteous path, different from the time you spent inside of me. What is true power until that time? He trailed off. You wouldn't happen to be talking about me, would you, Hagoromo? A voice from the darkness of the cave asked, the voice echoing all around the cave, making it impossible to locate the source. The large animals all snapped around searching for the voice that had managed to evade their senses, but found no luck. The man at the center of the circle, Hagoromo, however, was shocked. He knew that voice. He hadn't heard it in 50 or so years, but it sounded exactly the same. Naruto, he breathed before he spun around to search for the voice. Is it you? The large animals were confused. Did their father creator know this person? If so, how come they haven't met them before? A figure in a brown cloak dropped down from the ceiling into the middle of the circle with barely a sound. However, the slight thump of feet hitting the ground was enough to get the attention of the acute senses of the tailed beasts. All of them turning around to sight of the cloaked figure knew their father figure. The kitsune, Kurama, snarled at the unfamiliar person so close to someone he thought of as precious, but Hagoromo simply put up a hand without looking to stop the orange fox from doing anything more. The Rinnegan wielder was staring at the cloaked intruder standing almost an arm's length away from him. Naruto, Hagoromo said softly. Is it you? He repeated. Yes, brother, the cloaked figure replied, surprising the tailed beasts at his relation to their creator. It is me. As soon as he had confirmed that he was his brother, Hagoromo had wanted to hug the man opposite him, but restrained himself. He didn't know if Naruto still harbored ill feelings towards him. How have you been, Naruto? Hagoromo asked, trying to find out what his brother had been up to in the last 50 or so years. Terrible, Naruto said simply. Hagoromo withheld a wince. That was obviously the wrong thing to say. You wish to talk about it? Hagoromo, once again, withheld a wince at how hopeful his voice sounded. He had missed his brother over the years, even though they hadn't parted in the best of ways. He still cared about his younger sibling. Though he couldn't see his eyes, Hagoromo knew his brother was staring at him from under the hood. This continued on for several seconds before Naruto sighed. I killed Kasen. That shocked Hagoromo to his very core, and to a lesser extent the tailed beast that surrounded him, but to Hagoromo it was like a baby killing a full-grown man. Naruto had always loved his mother until the day when the three of them separated, but even then, Hagoromo still found it hard to believe that he could kill his own mother. The first thoughts running through his mind first of all was why. Naruto wouldn't kill his mother on a whim. Hagoromo knew that much. There must have been a reason why, and a damn good one at that. The tailed beast, to a lesser extent, were also shocked. To kill one's family was a big thing. For the man standing before, someone who all of them called their father, saying that they killed their mother and their father to not attack him immediately meant that this was not ordinary. What? Hagoromo asked, still stunned. Naruto simply sighed beneath his cloak. Several days ago I was passing the site of our battle of the Jubi when I felt a large chakra signature in the area. Being curious and slightly worried, I went to see what was going on. When I got there, however, I saw Kasen pacing back and forth in front of the statue. I was about to leave when I saw that she was actually connected to the statue via some sort of cord. It seemed to be keeping her alive as well, because she never made any move to pull it out or sever it in any way. Here Naruto sighed again. She was muttering about taking back chakra from the unworthy and getting back at the exiles. When I went to confront her, it became increasingly obvious that she was insane and unstable. She kept going on about how she was the true heir of chakra, and that the two of us were chakra's mistake, and that I had caught her off guard, not letting her have enough time to finish her plans. Naruto sighed again. In the end, we fought and I managed to overpower her with some new skills I acquired and kill her. There was some black figure that split off from her after the battle, but I managed to kill it. After that I realized that I should go inform you of her death, whether you cared or not. She was still your Kasen after all. I see, Hagoromo muttered. It appeared that his brother still harbored some resentment to him, not that he expected it to disappear. He just thought that his younger sibling would be able to look past that now. He was surprised to hear that his mother had gone insane. He definitely wasn't expecting that. I also came here to inform you of some developments that I've had, as well as to tell you to get rid of that Shinju statue, Naruto added, irritation in his voice at the end. Hagoromo perked up inwardly at that. Perhaps his brother did forgive him somewhat. I already have an idea on how to get rid of the statue and keep it out of anyone's hands, so what developments have cropped up? Hagoromo inquired. Did his brother gain some new powers or a new threat that needed to be taken care of? The possibilities spun through Hagoromo's head. He was pulled out his thoughts by Naruto sighing again. He seems to be doing that a lot recently, Hagoromo thought idly. He watched as Naruto brought his hands up to his hood before pulling it back. What Hagoromo saw was enough to make him take a step back, his eyes wide open in shock and his mouth hanging open. The tailed beasts, however, were simply confused at their father's shock. You haven't aged, Hagoromo breathed, shocking the Biju. He hasn't aged. But that was impossible. Everything ages, even they would age physical. Each one of them would grow bigger. Impossible change. For someone to not age is impossible. Yet standing before them is irrefutable proof that it was possible to age. Naruto Otsutsuki, looking exactly the same as he did the day that both he and Hagoromo had attacked the Jubi, long white hair with white eyes and horns on his forehead. There were no wrinkles or lines anywhere on his face. It looked young despite Hagoromo, knowing that Naruto should be into his late 60s at least. What happened, Naruto? Are you immortal? Hagoromo asked, hoping his brother would let him know. Because he didn't know if Naruto forgave him for stealing his chakra, forcing him to talk was not an option, which only left asking him and hoping that Naruto told him out of his own violation. The surrounding Biju also wanted to know how someone could stay so young, as well as maybe knowing some more about their father's brother, who was then technically their uncle. To answer your second question, I highly doubt I'm immortal. I have most likely simply stopped aging, and have no wish to test to see if I am immortal. During the sealing of the 10 tails, Naruto said. When the Shinju let off one final roar, it was enough to make me stumble, and when trying to steady myself, my foot went into the sealing circle that you were in. This caused a part of the Jubi's chakra to break off and enter via my foot. Thankfully, there were no consequences. My chakra overwhelmed the foreign chakra and broke it down, apparently assembling it into my body. My guess is that the Jubi's chakra altered some of my abilities. I think that it increased my healing abilities to an extremely high level, and since as the body ages it declines, my healing ability is constantly rejuvenating my body's cells, allowing me to keep my youth. Most likely indefinitely. Naruto took a breath to let Hagoromo and their audience take in the information. He didn't frankly care if the Biju heard about it, who would believe giant talking animals anyway. Plus if he would like to have somebody, or in this case some things, he knew that wouldn't die in less than a century, if he truly was not aging anymore, because if what he sensed was true. They were beings of chakra, and therefore would not age. He didn't know if the summons would age slowly, though it didn't really matter. He didn't know where they were or what happened to them after the battle with the Jubi. Maybe he could ask Hagoromo later. A few years after the battle, I started to exhibit several new abilities that I hadn't had before, nor did I recognize. I believe that this is some of my other abilities mutating, though some of them are completely different. However, it did awaken something that I did recognize. Naruto focused his chakra and watched as his brother's expression, his veins bulged around his own eyes before he released the chakra and the veins settled. It appeared as if I did have the white eye, but it was either dormant or inactive. Whatever it was though, the chakra from the Jubi seemed to have activated it. I also gained the ability to manipulate my body in unimaginable ways. To name a few, I have the ability to turn my body into elements. For example, I can turn my body into pure water earth. I have some other abilities that I have uncovered, but right now I want you to get rid of that damn statue. Hagoromo was wide-eyed and surprised at his brother's new abilities. They were definitely amazing and surprising, but it was his brother's insistence at getting rid of the statue that caught his attention. Why do you want me to get rid of the statue so badly, Naruto? Why don't you do it? Hagoromo questioned. Naruto narrowed his eyes a bit at Hagoromo. I want to get rid of it so badly because I don't want anyone else to find it and mess around with it. Who knows what could happen. I want you to do it because I already know you have a plan to deal with it. I checked around the statue after defeating Kasen, and saw the seals, anti-summoning seals to be precise, you had inscribed on the back of the stupid thing. All my plans involved destroying it, but because it's part god or something, I know I can't do that. After those words, his eyes softened. I also know you're going to die, Hagoromo. You can't hide it from the white eye. At this, Hagoromo looked startled before he sighed, seeming to age 10 years in a second. The tail beasts were shocked that they heard that their pseudo-father was going to die. The kitsune was the first to find his voice. Is that true, old man? Are you dying and weren't going to tell us? The voice came out like that of a small boy of around 7 or 8 years old, despite his size. This made Naruto raise an eyebrow, not only the fox's voice, but at his choice of words. Old man? He questioned towards Hagoromo, who shook his head. I don't think you're that old, Hagoromo. Why, take away some of the wrinkles, and you only look 90. Naruto joked. Hagoromo developed a tick above his eye at his brother's comment. Even after all these years, Naruto still knew how to press the right buttons. Hagoromo sighed, however, and proceeded to answer Kurama's questions. Yes, Kurama, I am dying. Over the years my body had become used to the Jubi's chakra within my system, and has become partly reliant on it to help my body operate. Now, though without it, my body will slowly begin to shut down. Hagoromo finished. If you seal one of us and you will that help? Was Kurama's response. Hagoromo gave a humorless chuckle. I am sorry Kurama, but that won't help. Your chakra is already slightly different from the Jubi's, and my body requires that exact same chakra to be reintroduced. Even then though, I'm old, it is my time to move on, and I would most likely pass in a few years anyway. The sage said sympathetically. This is why I want you to get rid of the statue, Naruto injected, wanting to get back on topic. Because if you die, I will have to hide it somewhere in the elemental nations or destroy it, and both of those options have too many variables that end badly. I know you have a plan and I'm sure it's a better one than mine, Naruto said. Hagoromo sighed at his brother's impatience. Very well, Naruto. Both of my sons, Indra and Asura, are currently out with their wives, so I can go without seeing them for a couple of days. So if you want to go, then let's go. Hagoromo finished, wishing that maybe he could spend some time to catch up with his brother, but was now realizing that Naruto still held a grudge, albeit a small one. Hagoromo then turned towards the Biju present and addressed them. You may stay here if you wish, or you may leave. Just know that I will be back by nightfall. With that, Hagoromo started towards the entrance only to be stopped by a hand on his shoulder. I have a faster way to travel, Naruto said as he initiated the first physical contact between the two of them in decades. Hagoromo was startled by the sudden contact, but kept his cool, and didn't show how happy he was at the simple gesture. Keeping his hand on Hagoromo's shoulder, Naruto's eyes turned a dark, almost black, purple. Instantly the shadows of the room started to move, startling the tailed beasts witnessing the event. The shadows slithered across the floor until they joined with Naruto, and began to cover his entire body before moving on to Hagoromo. As soon as the shadows had completely covered both bodies, they began to melt through the floor. Within minutes they were both gone, leaving several Biju wondering just who their pseudo-uncle was. In the center of a large wasteland with numerous craters and scorch marks from battles past, there is a giant wooden statue, taller than any tree. The statue, to anyone who had seen it, looked vaguely humanoid with arms and legs, as well as a head that resembled a human's. That was where the similarities ended. Besides the fact that the wooden figure was taller than mountains, it also had numerous spikes spread out along its back, and 9 closed eyes along a band over its head. The statue was sitting in the lotus position with its hands cupped and pointing upwards. Behind the statue, its shadow started to twist and move, coming alive. Out of the statue's shadow came Naruto and Hagoromo, with Hagoromo leaning on the former for support. "I am never doing that again," he moaned. It felt like he just got run over by a runaway cart. His stomach was constantly churning. "How did you do that anyway?" "We'll be doing that again if you want to get back, and remember all shadows are connected, old man," Naruto said cheekily. Hagoromo glared at his brother before turning to the surrounding area. There were several large craters that he didn't remember being there before. "This is aftermath of fighting Kasen," Naruto said seriously, reading his mind. "What happened to her body and that person you said split off her?" Hagoromo asked, not looking away from the barren landscape. "Incinerated," Naruto said simply before continuing. "I burned both of them with fire. Mother's after I defeated her, and the figure that split off from her when he thought he could escape from my senses," Naruto answered, his voice devoid of emotion. It was obvious that Naruto was not comfortable talking about how he killed his mother, so Hagoromo decided to move on to why they were here. Was going to, and still am, going to seal the statue in a ball of earth, using the Chibaku Tensei technique. Once sealed, I will raise it out of the planet's atmosphere and leave it suspended in space." Hagoromo told Naruto his idea, with Naruto contemplating the effectiveness of the idea. After several seconds, Naruto turned to his brother and nodded his agreement for the idea, before asking a question. "What do you need?" he queried. "Nothing," Hagoromo replied. "Enough space from the statue." "How far?" Naruto questioned again. "Follow me," Hagoromo said before he gathered his chakra and slammed his hand on the ground while speaking a single word. "Summoning." With a puff of smoke, a large black crow appeared with red eyes and a gold beak. The crow looked down on the 2 humans before bowing its head in submission before raising its head to look at the 2 before it. "Hagoromo-sama, what is it you wish of me?" the crow asked respectfully, while eyeing Naruto. The crow was male, judging by the sound of its voice, talking in a smooth tone. "It is good to see you once more, Naruto-sama. You must visit us sometime." Naruto chuckled at the crow's greeting. "Of course, Hiroshi, we will catch up." Naruto chuckled before taking on a mock-irritated voice. "But what did I tell you about calling me Naruto-sama?" "To not call you Naruto-sama," the Hiroshi replied. "So why did you call me that?" Naruto asked. "Because it annoys you," the crow said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Naruto had to resist the urge to face fault at the response. Perhaps this is what it felt like to be Hagoromo around him. Hagoromo meanwhile had to work to withhold a smirk. He learned long ago that the summons wouldn't stop addressing him with the sama suffix, so he had learned to live with it. His brother had. "Hiroshi," Hagoromo's voice brought Naruto out of his thoughts. "I need you to give me a lift to the strip of land that connects the land of fire to this continent," Hagoromo asked. The crow turned towards Hagoromo and bowed its head before speaking. "As you wish, Hagoromo-sama." The large crow lowered itself to the ground. "Climb on." As soon as Hagoromo had jumped on and gotten a good enough grip, the crow had taken off towards its destination with great speed. Naruto quickly caught up, using wind manipulation to fly after the crow. Deciding to pass the time to their destination with some questions, Naruto flew closer to Hagoromo before asking him a question. "Hagoromo," Naruto said, getting his brother to focus on him. "What happened with the summons after I left?" Hagoromo sighed, his eyes showing slight sadness. Hiroshi stayed quiet, focusing on flying. "After I found a place for the night when went our different ways, I summoned the summons and explained to them what happened. The majority of them were angry at me for forcefully stealing your chakra, and immediately told me they were leaving. That group included the dragon summons. I haven't heard anything from that group since, and haven't tried to summon them, as they most likely would attack me if I tried." Hagoromo sighed. "The dragons always were honorable. They thought what I did was one of the lowest things I could have done to achieve my goals. The rest of the summons were angry at me, but stayed. After that, as I traveled around the world to spread the world of Ninshu, I found homes for each of the summons, various mountain tops, caves, secluded forests, deep sea caves, and the like. I then asked the summons if they would allow other people to summon them. Many of them agreed, and for them, I created, using Fukinjutsu, what I call summoning scrolls for the humans. If they can mold their chakra correctly after writing their name in blood, they should be able to summon the animal of the contract. As an extra feature, I granted them the ability to summon themselves to their summoner's location, as well as summon their summoner to them, in case they wish to talk to them or something important happened. The summons also have the ability to remove someone from the scrolls, or not answer their summoner's call if they wish. Some of them wish to observe the rest of the humans to see if they were worthy. For them, I created a summoning scroll that they could use when they find someone worthy. Obviously some of them refused to be summoned by other people, and I just left them, occasionally summoning each one of them to make sure they were okay. Hagoromo paused and looked at Naruto, who was taking the information in while flying alongside Hiroshi. After a minute or two, Hagoromo continued. So far none of them have gained summoners, but that is to be expected. There hasn't been enough time for someone to find them yet. Hagoromo finished speaking with a breath. Naruto looked pensive before turning fully to look at Hagoromo. So, Naruto began. I can go, find some of the summons, ask them if I can sign their summoning scroll, and be able to summon them at will. Yes. Hagoromo replied, already having an idea where this was going. Naruto grinned. I'm going to find me some summons. Naruto thought for a second before looking towards Hiroshi, who had been half listening to the conversation. Hey Hiroshi. Do you think I could sign your contact? I am sorry Naruto-sama, but I have been selected to be the personal summon of Indra, Hagoromo-sama's eldest son. Myself and my clan are to be the summons of Indra Uchiha and the Uchiha clan. Hiroshi apologized. He honestly didn't want to be the personal summon of someone he had never met. It was true, he was yet to meet Indra, the first Uchiha was yet to summon him, and it was only his respect for Hagoromo that kept him from removing Indra's name from the summoning scroll. Naruto frowned when Hiroshi had finished talking, now turning towards his elder sibling with a questioning look. I've got a couple of questions. Naruto started. 1. Why does your son have a personal summon? 2. Why is his last name Uchiha? 3. Naruto's voice went from questioning to deadpan. King of gods, really? How arrogant can you get? As Naruto usual, a vein bulged over Hagoromo's eye at Naruto's comment. Hiroshi chuckled as the siblings interacted. It was almost like they had never separated. Hagoromo took a breath to calm himself down, before turning back to his brother to answer his brother. 1. Because I let him choose one as a birthday present. 2. Hagoromo paused before he continued on, his voice now softer. I let them choose their own last names, as they couldn't take Satsuki because mother kicked me out, remember? My eldest Indra gained mother's Tomai, though he calls it the Sharingan. Several years ago, it either evolved or mutated into what he calls the Mingekyo Sharingan. He chose the last name Uchiha. My youngest, Asur, chose the name Senju. He wasn't born with any natural abilities like his brother was, he had to work for all of his power. For his work, Asur realized the power that people helping him could provide. This in turn, made him even stronger, until he was on par with his brother. Hagoromo paused for a moment before his voice took on an irritated tone. 3. What I name my sons is none of your business. Naruto snorted. Says the one who named his son after one of his paths. Naruto looked at Hagoromo with a raised eyebrow. Asur, out of all the names you could have picked, you chose Asur. Shut up Naruto. Hagoromo snapped at Naruto. Naruto however just laughed at his brother before he picked up speed, moving out of hearing range of his brother's yelling. 2 or 3 hours later, Hiroshi touched down at the location, with Hagoromo sliding off his back. Naruto touched down soon after, landing right next to the giant bird, giving him a pat on the side. I'll come visit you soon Hiroshi. Naruto promised, smiling at his friend. I welcome your visit Naruto-sama and look forward to it. Goodbye for now, Naruto-sama, Hagoromo-sama. With those final words the large crow disappeared with a puff of smoke. Naruto then turned to Hagoromo with a serious face that was mirrored by his brother. Ready? Naruto asked. Yes. Hagoromo replied. It is time to get rid of the statue once and for all. With those words said, Hagoromo held his hands together, a few centimeters apart, while molding his chakra, preparing for what came next. Within seconds a black ball formed in between his palms that seemed to give off its own light. The ball grew slightly larger as Hagoromo fed the technique for a few more seconds. Naruto wanted to ask his brother if he wanted some chakra to help with the formation of the technique, but didn't say anything, lest he break his brother's concentration. With a grunt, Hagoromo thrust his hands forward, launching the technique while shouting its name. Chibaku Tensei. He exclaimed as the technique quickly put distance between its caster and itself. The ore continued like this, getting smaller as it traveled into the distance before it stopped, now just a black dot on the horizon. There was a rumbling in the earth, the ground shook and shifted and, eventually, lifted off the ground in chunks of rock and soil. Tones of the earth was pulled from the ground and gravitated towards the floating black sphere, and started to form layers over the black dot. Eventually both males saw what they wanted to see, the demonic statue of the Shinju slowly lifting into the air, caught in the pull of the technique, and smashing into the, now, large floating sphere of rock, and was quickly covered up by more rock that was caught in the sphere's gravitational pull. Hagoromo continued to power the technique for several minutes, causing the technique to absorb more and more earth. It wasn't until Naruto looked away from the technique did he realize just how much earth the technique was taking up. The continent where they fought the Jubi was almost gone, and Hagoromo didn't show any sign of stopping. Hagoromo. Naruto called. I think that's enough, you can stop the technique. Hagoromo showed no sign of hearing his brother, but stopped the technique, but kept the now gigantic sphere hovering in midair. Hagoromo breathed a sigh of relief about finishing the first part of the plan. Now it was time to do the next phase of the plan. Raising his arms, Hagoromo channeled much of the chakra he had left. Never before had he tried a technique of this scale, and it was taking almost everything he had left to finish the technique. If he still had the Jubi's chakra, this would have been much easier. The satellite responded to Hagoromo's chakra, and slowly began to raise itself in the air, getting higher and higher, as it reached the edge of the Earth's atmosphere. People all around the world would see this happening. They'd record it in books, tell children of it, and even try to recreate it. But that would be later. Right now, the people were just happy to sit and stare in awe of the Sage of Six Paths' power. All of them, in some part of their brains, knew that this was a once-in-a-millennium event. Eventually, the newly created satellite was far enough from the ground that Hagoromo could release the technique fully, falling to his hands and knees after he was finished. Naruto dropped to his knees as well to make sure that Hagoromo was okay. "I'm fine," Hagoromo said as he breathed deeply. "Just exhausted." Naruto activated his white eye to check and visibly cursed at what he saw. Evidently, Hagoromo's chakra coils hadn't fully healed from when he extracted the Jubi's chakra all at once, so when Hagoromo had performed Chibaku Tensei, his coils had been stretched to dangerous levels. His coils were on the brink of bursting. This hadn't helped Hagoromo's body either. Using Chibaku Tensei on such a scale had actually increased Hagoromo's rate of death. While originally he had maybe a month or two, Hagoromo would be lucky to last till the end of the week. Shit. Naruto cursed as he deactivated his eye. This was definitely bad. "Hagoromo," Naruto called. "I'm going to get us back to where the Biju were, okay? Then we have to find you a bed." Hagoromo gave a nod, and Naruto quickly acted using the shadows to transport himself and Hagoromo to the cave where they first met. The tailed beasts were all sitting around in the cave when Naruto and Hagoromo were deposited by the shadows. Naruto wasted no time moving towards the center of the room, as a bed of earth rose up out of the ground, covered in grass as a cushioning. Hagoromo was quickly placed on the bed of grass, as the large animals all started to crowd around the bed. The kitsune was the first to talk. "Old man, what's wrong?" Naruto could hear the worry in its voice for his brother, and seeing as Hagoromo was in no condition to speak, still exhausted, Naruto responded instead. "The idiot strained himself too much," Naruto said, causing Nine Faces to turn to him. He blinked at the sudden attention before continuing. Because the Jubi's chakra was supporting his organs, helping them to work, when his chakra disappeared, Hagoromo's body started to rely on his own chakra more and more, to keep his organs functioning as efficiently as possible. Since Hagoromo used a chakra draining technique for several seconds until his chakra replenished, his organs had nothing to help them function, so the brain started to shut some of them down, in order to conserve energy. This has speed up the rate at which Hagoromo perishes, as even now some of his chakra is being drained by his organs to work, but some of them aren't getting the chakra to function, because his body isn't producing it fast enough to get it to each organ. Naruto paused to let the Biju absorb the new information before continuing in a soft voice, yet all heard him. At the current rate, Hagoromo's health will deteriorate to the point where his heart will stop within the week, followed almost immediately by his brain. It will be a painless death. Naruto finished quietly. It was silent for several minutes as all the tailed beasts soaked in the information that their creator, their father, was going to die. Shikaku was the first to break, tears spilling down his sand cheeks. It was then that the dam burst and the rest of the Biju broke down. There wasn't any wailing or bawling, there were just silent tears streaking down cheeks. Even Naruto felt one crawl down his cheek. "Naruto," Hagoromo called weakly, but in the hollowed room all the occupants heard him. "Yes, Hagoromo," Naruto replied softly. "If I am going to die," the Rinnegan user began slowly, feeling his age now more than ever. "I would like you to do some things for me, is that okay?" he asked. "Of course," his brother replied, before giving a mirthless chuckle. "I can't deny an old man now, can I?" Hagoromo gave a small chuckle and replied before speaking. "After I die, can you bury me in the garden of the monastery we grew up in as kids?" the dying man asked. "You may leave my tools in this cave, but I ask you to bury me in the monastery, as a reminder of happier times," Hagoromo pleaded. "You don't have to ask, Hagoromo," his brother said. Another tear rolled down his cheek. The last of his family was lying in front of him dying. "Anything else?" "Yes," Hagoromo said. "Can you tell me about your life, about what you did during the years?" Naruto said nothing for several moments, simply staring at the bed. Hagoromo was about to speak again before his brother spoke up. "For several years after I let you in Kasan," he started. "I just wandered, stopping from town to town, place to place, never really staying anywhere, using an illusion Kasan had taught us to hide my horns. One day, I woke up slumped over on a stool in a bar somewhere that I couldn't remember with someone shaking me awake." Naruto paused to smile. It was a woman, the most beautiful woman. Long dark red hair with strange purple eyes, almost like the Rinnegan's glare. She was amazing. I was sitting on her cloak apparently, and after she retrieved it, I offered to buy her a drink and she accepted. Naruto had a soft smile on his face as he remembered the woman. Eventually, we started dating, and after several dates, I told her about myself. What I could do. about my past, and she still accepted me. We married shortly after, moving into our own house from the money I made working as a blacksmith. A year later, we had our first child, a red-haired boy named Kazama. 2 years after that, our second child was born, another boy named Mushia. Like with you, I also let go of the Sasuke name, though I chose my own children's last name. Uzumaki Kazama and Haiku Mushia are their full names. Kazama has my large reserves, though not on my scale, while Mushia has the white eye, but like with your child, he has also renamed it. He calls it the Byakugan, even though it still means white eye. He insists that I should call it the Byakugan, because it sounds more awesome. Naruto let out a chuckle at his son before he continued. My son's Byakugan is more like Ka-sen's was. The eye is more of a lavender color than pure white like mine is. Both of my sons are now married and have kids of their own. I even think both of them are preparing to be grandfathers. Naruto continued. His voice turned slightly pained as he spoke the next few words. My wife died almost 5 years ago, old age. I stayed with her even though I never aged a day. She would always tell me to go find a new wife or go see the world, even to go visit you or Ka-sen, but I couldn't leave her. Naruto's eyes built up tears as he thought of his recently deceased wife. My sons didn't need me anymore, both of them now in their 50s, so I decided to travel again. Go back to training. Eventually I came across Ka-sen at the Jubi statue. You know what happened from there. There was silence for several moments as the audience digested Naruto's past. Both Hagoromo and Naruto had led remarkably similar lives, both having 2 children, one child inheriting their eyes, the other their body. Both of their wives died before them. Naruto, Hagoromo said wistfully. Do you remember that time I was meditating and you set my cloak on fire? Naruto snorted. Of course I remember that. That was the first time I've ever seen someone try to put out fire out with wind, and then get surprised when the flames get bigger. I was 8. Hagoromo said indignantly. You were right next to a pond. Naruto deadpanned. The Biju snicked at their father's bout of stupidity. Even Hagoromo gave a small chuckle. Those were the days, weren't they? He said. When we had nothing to worry about except Ka-sen's next training session or a prank from you. Hey. Naruto exclaimed. I wasn't that bad, and my pranks were classics in their own right. Oh really? Hagoromo said with slight disbelief. What about that time when you thought it would be a good idea to show Ka-sen how wet the water in the pond was? It was better in my head. Naruto grumbled. The rest of the cave's occupants chuckled and laughed at the white-haired man's grumblings. For the rest of the night, Hagoromo and Naruto stayed up remembering stories from their youth, of better times. Neither could tell the time down in the cave, and neither cared. For once in almost half a decade, both Hagoromo and Naruto felt their shoulders a little lighter and their spirits a little brighter. Less than a week later, Naruto stood in a garden he thought he'd never see again. It was the garden that he'd grown up in, one where he'd laughed and cried, failed and succeed. It was a place that brought him great joy but also great sorrow, and now it would be the place where he laid his brother to rest. He'd left his brother's possessions in the cave where they had been first reunited. Naruto felt they didn't belong in a place like this. Hagoromo had spent his final moments with Naruto by his side, talking. Not about anything in particular, just talking about whatever came to mind, whether it was about the past or what the future of the world would be like. Hagoromo felt that there would be lasting peace. Naruto didn't have the heart to tell him that he didn't believe him. Naruto would have actually rather Hagoromo spend his final moments with his sons by his side, but after he had proclaimed that Asura would be the one to carry on his dreams, Indra had become enraged. He had yelled at his father how he was wrong, and that he would prove it by defeating his brother. Indra had then stormed out with Asura following him, trying to get him to stop to no avail. Naruto had seen the obvious sadness in his face at his sons abandoning him in his final moments. So he had stepped out of the shadows he had been hiding himself in, and proceeded to simply talk to his brother about some of the less meaningful things. Until he heard his brother's breath start to slow. With his dying breath, Hagoromo had apologized to Naruto for everything, for creating the rift in their family, for putting his goal ahead of his blood. Naruto had simply ignored his apologies, telling him that he had forgiven him years ago. Hagoromo had given him a teary smile in return. Hagoromo had asked if Naruto would watch over his descendants, keep them fighting each other, like he knew he would with his own. Naruto had told him that he would try his best, but that his speciality was antagonizing people, rather than keeping them from attacking each other. Hagoromo had given his brother a small laugh, telling him that they would meet again one day, and that he loved him. Before his breath stilled, his heart settled, and his pulse stopped. And like that, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths, the savior of this world, was dead. And Naruto was alone. He was the last member of what was once the Otsutsuki family. Naruto stared down at the grave that belonged to his brother. It was a simple grave, a rectangular hole in the ground that Naruto covered up with earth. The gravestone was a large bamboo tree that Naruto had grown within seconds, thanks to his power over wood. Naruto felt the tree was a fitting gravestone. Naruto felt that this is what Hagoromo would have desired if he could plan his own funeral. Performed in a quiet, isolated place that is some sort of significance to him, only with family or what was left of his family anyway. Naruto didn't know what would happen now, he didn't know what to do. For the first time since his family had split and gone their separate ways, Naruto was lost. Though Naruto thought as his head snapped up and turned towards the south. Maybe I do have something I can do. Naruto was currently sensing large amounts of chakra being released, not on the level that both himself and Hagoromo had been able to achieve, but still too high for any sort of regular chakra user to be able to conjure. Maybe I should pay a visit to little Indra and his sir. With those thoughts, Naruto swept back out of the monastery, giving his brother's grave one last look back before he strode out of the garden and the monastery. Closing the large monastery doors, Naruto then channeled chakra into the door and observed as a massive array of seals appeared and spread over the door in the rest of the monastery. The image of the monastery then wavered before it faded from view, leaving a bare mountaintop in its wake. The illusionary seals should keep anyone from disturbing his brother's resting place, unless it was himself or any relatives that he decided would be worthy enough to enter the sanctuary. The seals have the ability to trick any and all senses, so no one besides him should be able to find the monastery. All Naruto has to do is send out a chakra construct to touch the monastery, and the seals would power down, revealing the monastery. With one last look at the invisible monastery, Naruto flared his chakra and took off towards the south, where he sensed a battle raging. He was going to show them why pissing him off was a bad idea. Indra was angry, no, not angry, frustrated, it more like it, with his brother. How could a Sir be going toe-to-toe with him? He was meant to be the powerful one, him, Indra. Not a Sir, the one who was never proficient in ninju. Yet here they both were now, both cloaked in their chakra manifested Amar, him in his Susanoo, while a Sir was in his battle avatar, facing off against each other. Both of them had been going against each other for a few hours now, and Indra was starting to get frustrated. Why couldn't he defeat his Sir? It should have been an open and closed fight. He should have beaten his brother after a half hour of fighting, an hour at the most, yet their fight had lasted for almost 5 hours. He had more power, a larger chakra manifest, so why couldn't he win? His brother's avatar was up to his knee for Kami's sake. He had his father's chakra and spiritual energy. He should have won this stupid fight and been declared his father's successor. Indra, his brother called, shouting at him from across their battlefield, which happened to be the forests of Fire Country. Stop this fight now. You can go back to Tucson and apologize for yelling at him. Please let us just stop this madness. Indra glared at his brother from his Susanoo. We will not end this fight as Sir. Not until one of us is on the ground defeated. Indra was about to rush his brother when he felt something latch onto the leg of his Susanoo. Looking down, he noticed a large vine had wrapped its way up around the leg and was winding higher. Both of you will stop fighting this instant. The voice that said this was angry but was holding it back, or at least trying to hold it. Looking towards the source of the voice, Indra saw something he thought he'd never see anyone but his father doing. Flying, or at least levitating. The white-haired man was hovering just in front of the face of his Susanoo, not looking at all nervous. Noting that this man was in his way of finishing his fight with the Sir, Indra wanted to get rid of this man as quickly as possible. Get out of my way, you fool. The Uchiha hissed at the hovering man. He wanted to beat his Sir, not waste his time talking. You are stopping me from taking what is rightfully mine. He snarled. The man narrowed his eyes at Indra, but he couldn't bring himself to care. He wanted to fight, not to talk. You will stop fighting, now. It was now painfully obvious the man was trying his hardest to rein in his anger at Indra's lack of respect, but Indra either didn't notice or didn't care. The first Uchiha tugged at his Susanoo's leg, and succeeded in detaching ridding it of the vine, before he then started to move towards his Sir, who had been studying the man that appeared before Indra. Had Indra been paying more attention, he would have heard the man mutter, so be it. He also would have seen his brother's eyes widen significantly. But he didn't, so he was surprised when he felt a hand on his Susanoo's shoulder. Turning around, Indra was met with a massive glowing dark blue fist that smashed into the face of his Susanoo. Indra was sent reeling from the force of the strike, his Susanoo losing its balance and crashing to the ground with a boom, flattening a mile of forest with his foe. Gathering his bearings, Indra looked to the source of the fist only to be shocked. Where there was once a man floating in the air, there was now a giant dark blue copy of the man, who was now inside the chakra construct. He idly noted that there were horns of the construct eerily similar to the ones his father has. Indra was shocked. He thought he was supposed to be the only one to be able to create a Susanoo, though he didn't know if that was an actually Susanoo, or he was imitating it somehow. Judging by the distinct lack of a Mangekyou Sharingan or even a regular Sharingan meant that the person before him was somehow imitating a Susanoo. I told you to stop fighting, the imitator said. Now I will beat you until you can't fight. He promised. That's what it sounded like, not a threat, not a vow, but a promise. Indra would never admit it, but at that moment he was considering surrendering to the man before him. The person had downed him with a single punch. A sucker punch it may have been, but it was still a single punch. The Sir couldn't boast about being able to knock him down in one punch, so what did that say about this man? Indra was thinking about that, at least until his pride caught up with him. Shaking those traitorous thoughts out of his head, Indra glared at the white-haired man. As if he would surrender to anyone. Quickly regaining his footing, Indra raced towards the horned construct, wanting to end the man inside, so he could continue on to his brother. Reaching the man, Indra threw a punch, his Susanoo mirroring his movements. The man, however, using his forearm, moved the punch off target, having it just skimming the shoulder of the horned construct. The man retaliated with a swift uppercut, the chakra construct having surprising speed besides being so large. The uppercut crashed into the chin of Indra's Susanoo, lifting it to the ground, before the Susanoo was by the throat out of the air and slammed into the ground, creating an imprint in the earth. With the Susanoo on the ground, the Susanoo look-alike lifted its foot up, ready to slam it down on the head of the chakra manifestation. Indra was saved, however, by an unlikely source. Asur. The first Senju had tackled the newcomer round the waist, or at least tried to. The larger chakra figure grabbed Asur's avatar, before slamming it onto the still-down Susanoo. The dark blue chakra construct then placed its foot on top of Asur's battle avatar, and by extension, Indra's Susanoo. "I will give you one last chance." The figure spoke. "Stop fighting." Neither brother spoke as the figure stood on top of them. Both of them wanted to fight, though for different reasons. Indra wanted to prove he was better than Asur, while Asur wanted to prove to Indra that he was worthy of being their father's successor. It wasn't until a minute or two later that the only standing figure sighed. "Very well, I will ask you both a question, and depending on how you answer it will affect how you both leave this place." He paused for a moment to let both brothers think over the compromise. "How can peace be achieved?" the white-haired man asked. Both men answered immediately. "Love," Asur answered. "Power," was Indra's response. Both of the men answered with full confidence in their answer. The man looked at the two of them for a second before he dematerialized his Susanoo look-alike, still hovering in mid-air, before he then shot off into the air and fly away, quickly disappearing into the distance. Both of the sons of Hagoromo would then quickly get back to fighting before they both had to retreat, both having wounds and bruises that needed time to heal. Naruto in the meantime would be relaxing in the branches of a tree in the land of rivers. Naruto sighed. Both Indra and Asur failed his miniature test. Both would continue to fight, and there would be nothing he would be able to do. Both had the same determination that his mother and Hagoromo had over peace. Naruto knew that even if he separated them once, that they would eventually fight each other again and again and again, until one of them died or one of them did something they regretted. Both of them would continue fighting and would then eventually pass it on to their descendants. Then their descendants would fight each other, and the cycle would continue. Eventually they would just start fighting each other for the sake of it, no longer even remembering the reason why they fought, only that they were meant to hate the others for some reason. Naruto could only hope that one day they realize what they were doing and stop fighting. He could only watch until that day. "I'll help them when the time comes, Hagoromo, I promise," Naruto whispered to the wind. With that, Naruto proceeded to take a nap. He would need his energy when he woke in the morning. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.